welcome back to my channel. Today's video I thought would be just kind of a fun one to do. We're going to make fry bread today. I'm going to show you guys my family recipe to make fry bread, and we're going to just sit down and chat. I'm just going to kind of tell you guys a little bit about myself and let you guys get to know me and where I come from and how I grew up and stuff like that. So let's get into it. Okay, so my family's recipe is not exactly like traditional, I don't think, especially because we use regular, just like all-purpose flour. I know there are some natives who like swear by bluebird flour and like you have to use bluebird flour to make fry bread, but I don't know what the difference is and I honestly can't taste the difference. So I just use what I got. I got all-purpose flour, salt, we have baking powder as well as water in there to add a little bit of moisture, and powdered milk. It's pretty simple of a recipe. If you hear anything in the background, it is my son. So I'm actually going to be halving the recipe because I'm only making fry bread for 4 people. So normally when we make fry bread, we make it for our whole family, which there's 6 of us in my family, plus like significant others slash friends that we have over or just guests that we have over. We tend to make this for like big special occasions and we don't make it all the time. But today we're just gonna make it for me and Ruben as well as our friends who are coming over for dinner. I will also leave the recipe in the description down below for you guys to reference later if you'd like, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you want the recipe on hand all the time. Okay, so to start, the recipe calls for 4 cups of flour, so I'm just gonna do 2 cups of flour, and you're not gonna, You're not gonna like mat it down or anything, you're just gonna scoop it and drop it, just flatten it out. I have to use a 1/4 cup because it's the only thing that fits inside of my flour jar here. And then you're gonna mix all the dry ingredients together, so the salt, powdered milk, and baking powder. So the next thing is going to be the salt. We'll do 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of powdered milk.
0.5 US tablespoon is equal to 1.5 US teaspoons.
Okay, so then we're going to do 1.5 teaspoons. 1. You're going to go ahead and just give that a quick little mix all of that together. And the next thing is 1.5 cups of water, and that's for 4 cups, sorry. So that's 3/4 cup of warm water, but it says very warm water, and I think that's probably important to like activate all the ingredients and make sure that it gets the fluff that it needs. I'm not 100% sure. I didn't come up with this recipe, so we're just gonna follow the directions. Okay, so now we're just gonna pour the water in here and mix it with the spoon real quick, and then we're gonna get it in there with our hands and really knead that dough together. It says here in the directions that my mom wrote that it's better to have a very wet, not very wet, but a wetter dough. My gosh, my words. A wetter dough than it is to have a dry dough. And while I knead, I'll tell you guys a little bit about myself. So, if you didn't know, I'm Native American. I am from the Isleta Pueblo tribe. My tribe is just 30 minutes south of Albuquerque, and I'm Native American on my mom's side. I grew up kind of learning about my culture from being so close and having my grandma and my cousins and things like that dance in our tribe. We would go down for feast days, and something that I loved was that when I was growing up, my mom would come to my elementary school and she would teach my classes about our culture. Hold on, I need a little more water because it's not mixing. Okay, I'm just gonna hopefully just pour a little bit. Anyhow, so my mom, when we were younger, she did this, I think, for all of us kids, is she would come in during Native American Heritage Month or at different times of the year, and she would come into our class. Oh crap, I poured too much water. She would come into our class and she would teach about our culture. She would come and both her and I would wear our culture's traditional regalia. Some people call it a costume. It's not a costume. It's not pretend or make believe. It's traditional wear, and we call it regalia. So we would wear our regalia and she would come in, She would make fry bread. She would talk about our culture and what we wear and our history a little bit, and she would just explain everything to our class about us. Okay, so now that we've formed just a little bit of dough ball, you don't want to overknead it because overkneading anything with dough makes it really tough. So now that it's formed into a ball, I'm going to put it back in the bowl, and then I'm going to seal it and cover it for at least 30 minutes to kind of let it rise and work out its situation. And then I'm going to come back and finish telling you guys a little bit about me when the dough is ready. In the meantime though, I'll show you guys what we usually have our fry bread with while we wait for this to rest. While the dough rests, we're gonna go ahead and get the oil started to heat up. So we either use vegetable oil or canola oil. We just use kind of whatever we have on hand. I think we usually just used vegetable oil. Another thing that is, I think, specific to just how people make it is some people will just straight up fry and melt Crisco to fry their fried bread in. So whatever you have on hand, whatever you want to use, go ahead and use it. I have this leftover oil that we've used before, and it's not burnt oil, so we're gonna go ahead and use it again. And you wanna make sure that when you warm it up, you don't get it too hot because you don't want the oil to burn and you don't want your food to burn later on. This is actually my first time ever doing this, but you're gonna want to actually do it in a cast iron. That's how it's usually done. My family, we usually just do it in a regular pan, but I've heard that it's better to do it in like a cast iron skillet because it keeps the temperature more even throughout the whole cooking process. But you just want to make sure that it's deep enough to fry, and the fry bread is super thin. I like mine thinner. Some people like it a little bit thicker, but I prefer mine to be a little bit thinner. But you just want to make sure it's just deep enough but not too deep, and you just want to make sure that it doesn't get too hot so that it burns everything. Okay, so while the oil heats up and the dough is given time to rest, I'm actually gonna prep a couple of things that we have with fry bread. So fry bread, you can have it in two ways. You can have it either like a savory, like an Indian taco, or you can have it sweet and just put like some honey butter, you can put powdered sugar, but tonight we're going to have it in a savory scent. So I'm gonna get some things ready. We like to have it with sauteed meat. We usually just do some ground beef with some onion. We do raw onions. We do salsa, chili, cheese, sour cream, beans, lettuce. You can kind of put whatever you want on it. But I feel like traditionally when it's served as an Indian taco, it usually has some form of meat, some form of bean, cheese, salsa. Have at it, do whatever you want to put on it, but this is what me and my family do. So when you cut the onions, I like to dice mine so that it's scattered throughout the meat, and then you have just small little bits or on top as well. So I'm just trying to get everything that I can ready before we start cooking. And something that my mom does, since these are deep fried, to get some of the grease off, she'll get a bowl ready to put them in after she's done, and she'll put paper towels around it just to catch some of that grease so that they're not fully saturated, and maybe we can get a little bit of grease off. 30 minutes is up and we are going to officially start rolling out, I guess that's the word, our fry bread. So you're gonna wanna get a clean surface and then sprinkle it with flour. You don't want to get too heavy on the flour here just because the more flour you add, the tougher they'll get. I go ahead and use a rolling pin. I know traditionally, and lots of people, they just do it with hands. I just can't do that, and this is how I learned, so I'm just showing you guys how I learned, but to each their own. You're gonna take just a little bit, you're gonna kind of form it, and then you're gonna put it down and roll it out. So while I roll these out, I'll finish telling you guys a little bit about myself. So I was telling you guys before how my mom used to come in elementary school, and she used to help us and teach about our culture, and that was like so fun for us to do, and like such a great memory that I have with my mom from when we were younger, and she did that for all of us kids, and I hope that I can do that in all of my kids in their classes too. So I have no idea how big this is, but you're gonna want to roll it pretty thin so that it fries up pretty thin and gets really nice and fluffy. Like I said before, I really don't like my fry bread to be thick, so I always do it thin. Let me get a tester piece real quick. We're testing if the oil is hot enough, so you're just gonna get a little piece of dough and roll it out to about the same thickness as your dough is, and you're gonna put it in, see if it, one, doesn't sink. It shouldn't sink, it should come and float all the way to the top of the oil, and then see if it cooks all the way through. You're gonna cook it on both sides, see if it cooks all the way through. If it cooks too fast and it's brown but doughy on the inside, then you need to lower the temperature on your oil and try again. Something else that I didn't mention earlier, but I think you should definitely do, especially if you live in a small apartment like me, and even if you don't, because we do this at my house, and my house is obviously a lot bigger than this apartment that we live in, is open the windows and doors. The hot oil just like consumes everything. So close the doors to your bedroom and open up all the windows and doors that you can, so that you get a little bit of like air circulation happening, and it's not all just like hot oil mess air on top of you. Okay, we have our little tester done, and oh, it's hot. I'm gonna take a bite real quick and see how it is. That was hot. Mother F. So I definitely could have cooked it longer. I was being a little bit impatient, but it did really well. It's nice and golden and it's crispy, just how I like it, and quite delicious. So I'm gonna make a few more, and then I'm gonna go over and start frying. So as we got older, my mom stopped coming to our classes. It was kind of just an elementary school thing. And as we got older, I feel like I can't really speak for the rest of my family, but I know, at least for myself, I kind of stopped caring about my culture. I stopped wanting to go to feast days. I stopped wanting to talk about my culture. I didn't really learn much about my culture. I kind of rejected it, you could say. Not that I didn't want anything to do with it. It was just like, it just didn't feel important to me, so I never made it a priority. And so on tribes, we have dance days where we do our traditional dances, and I definitely rejected that, and I would be wah every time my mom would try and get us to go to those things. And even that progressed through high school. We would come up to BYU, and every year they have a powwow, like a competition that happens, and they perform different traditional dances from different tribes, and it's a competition. They compete for who's the best dancer, and they always have one every year here at BYU. We would come up at the same time to BYU as these things were happening, but I never wanted to go to these. My mom would always, she'd ask us like, can we go to powwow this year? Can we do this? And we would always say, no, it's so boring. Why would we want to do that? And things like that. So I don't know, I just really thought my culture was boring, and I just thought like that it wasn't really important, you know? And it's sad to think that, but that's honestly how I thought. And I think that's how a lot of Native Americans feel about their culture and Native American teens, unfortunately. That's just how a lot of them feel. When I came to BYU, finally graduated from college, or from high school, I came to BYU and I auditioned for a dance group called Living Legends. And Living Legends is a multicultural dance group at BYU. They do Native American, Latin American, and Polynesian dancing, and I obviously auditioned for the Native American section. Even though I had never ever danced in my life, decided to give it a shot because my mom did it and she loved it, and I thought, why not? I have nothing to lose. So I ended up making it, and by the way, I auditioned with ballet. That's literally how uncultured I was. I ended up making the group, which was a shock to me, but I'm really happy that I made the group. One, because I met my husband, but two, I also gained a really, really strong appreciation for my culture. I was able to learn about the dances. I was able to learn about the different tribes that our group represents and does dances from, and it was really fun, really amazing, and I just learned so much. So then like my freshman year when my mom came up to watch the show, I went ahead and said, let's go to powwow, and I loved it. And now every year we go to powwow, and so I just really gained an appreciation for my culture and for other Native American cultures, because I feel like in the media they portray Native Americans as like one people and we are all the same, but there's actually a lot of differences among what we wear and how we live. So not every tribe lived in a teepee or in things like that. We all had our different ways of living, and so I just didn't know that, and so it was cool to learn about all the different tribes and everything. Just to wrap this up, I guess this is to say, I learned a lot about my culture. It took me a while to get into it, but it's something that's like really important to me and something that I really want to instill in my kids, and it's really not heavy on my heart, but it's something that's been on my mind as we come up in the Halloween season and as we approach Thanksgiving and specifically Native American Heritage Month. So I just implore you, if you're watching this, to not dress up as a Native American for those holidays, and to talk to those who are Native. Be open-minded to people and their stories, and just be willing to learn from those around you. There's a lot to our history, and Native American history is deep and sad, but it's beautiful, and our culture is something that should be celebrated. So anyhow, so now that I've rolled out all my dough, it didn't make nearly as many Navajo tacos as I thought it would, but hopefully we can feed everybody with them. But we're gonna go ahead and fry these up now. Okay, so you're definitely going to need tongs to fry them, to flip them, or like a wood stick or something. How my mom learned to make them was by putting a hole in the middle so that you could put a stick in the hole and then flip it. But I didn't do that today. We're just gonna do it whole. So I have my tongs ready, and as you lay this in the fryer or in the hot oil, make sure you lay it away from you so that no oil splashes on you. You want to make sure you're being safe with this. Okay, and you're gonna wanna watch for around the edges. They will get a little bit golden, and that's how you're gonna kind of tell. So if you need to lift it up a little bit to check, you can. But once the edges get a little bit golden, it's time to flip. So I can see it's a little golden here. I'll flip it. Oh, that's a little pale. So next time I can keep that in just a little bit longer. Okay, I made these just like a little bit too thin. I know I like them thin, but this is almost like a regular taco, like a hard shell taco, too thin. So do you, just test it out. Okay, so there you have it. I made my fry bread. I do think I made them a little too thin. Two of them I think I did okay on the thinness, but for the most part I do think that I made them a little too thin. So kind of play around with it, figure out what you guys like, how thick you guys like it. Like I said, some people like them really thick. I just prefer mine to be a little bit on the thinner side. This is my very first time also making them without my mom. I usually make them at home with her, but this is my very, very first time doing it like 100% by myself. So it's probably why it didn't turn out 100% successful, but it is what it is. Also, I told you guys I halved the recipe, and I think for 4 people, you should definitely keep with like 4 cups of flour. I think that for 2 people, 2 cups of flour, and that whole recipe that I did today was just fine, if not more than enough, but I think it's a little bit for 4 people. Especially considering that my husband eats a lot, and our friends that come over, the husband on that side, he eats a lot as well. So I'm not exactly sure that this will be enough for everybody, but fingers crossed that it will feed everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe down below and give this video a thumbs up. Turn on your bell notifications so you guys don't miss any of my upcoming videos. A reminder that I will also have the recipe for the fry bread in the link down below, or in the description down below, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.